All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for being with us today. Mr. Mazurkowitz, we are not waiting at this point for anybody to come on. We've let in all participants that are here, so we'll leave it up to you to start when you're ready.
Okay, Dr. Amy, do we have a quorum?
Sorry, hold on, let me. Was it? Can you hear me okay? We have 9 of our 17.
All right, 8's a quorum, so we're good. First of all, welcome and thank you all for joining us online. I'll call the meeting to order. Have a roll call, please.
Got it.
Hi, everyone. So according to the participant list, I have Alyssa Brandemont, Chris Simino, Dennis Perlman, Fred Elliott, James Dozier, James Nathan, Joe Mazurkowitz, Joe Caddy, Michelle Perez on the phone, and for absences for excused, I have Sandra Doughty and Carmen Salome. Did I miss anyone?
All right, Jeannie, thank you very much. We are now in order with a quorum. First item of business is approval of the prior meeting minutes.
Chris Simino, move approval.
Second.
Joe Caddy, second.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Amy, I cannot tell if we have any public online with us. Are there any members of the public?
We do not have any members of the public on this evening.
Okay, next then we will go to the review of the sales tax funded projects. District staff, Dr. Amy, are you leading that?
Yes, I am. Let me give me just a moment to share my screen, get the PowerPoint up. All right. Is everybody looking at the slideshow? I want to make sure you're seeing our PowerPoint presentation on your screens. All right, very good. So we have the agenda here for you. Each of you should have received that in email. And so we've got several items to go through today, including the review of all the sales tax funded projects and then our financial review as well. And then we also must discuss dates for our next meeting as well. So just wanted to make sure that I pointed that out. We have, we want to make sure that because this had been such a point of discussion in previous meetings, wanted to make sure that we are including the overall information for the capital budget. So $453.8 million is our entire capital budget, which is all different types of funding sources as is listed here in the pie graph. And our estimated revenue in FY21 for sales tax constitutes 32% of that budget. So to know that, one third of what we have within capital we wouldn't have without the assistance of the sales tax. So a very important point for us. Okay, and then our sales tax budget for fiscal year 21 at $144.3 million. We have 4 major categories that we have talked about expending these funds in. And I like this pie chart because it really shows kind of the balanced approach right now that we have within our sales tax of all the different categories that we're expending. 25% in maintenance on our existing schools. We've got construction, which would be the new schools coming up of 16%, followed by both technology and safety in 18%. And then the remainder in reserves, because of course, these are long-term projects. So we'll be paying for them over a period of time. So nice pie chart that really talks about how these sales tax dollars are spread out. And as that and as it says on the bottom, that construction number does include debt service for the new schools that we're building. So we have our sales tax project status update broken down into these major categories, either new schools and major renovations, those projects over $1 million, and also other projects which may constitute single projects less than $1 million, but collectively there's still a large amount. So we want to make sure that we give the committee a chance to hear about a little bit of all of those projects that are going on. So that being said, for our next portion with new schools and major renovations, as well as projects over $1 million, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Kathy Ebal, who will give us some details about each of these. And I encourage each of you, if there's any questions that you have as we go through the information, that you can raise your hand on screen or just unmute and let us know you have a question, and we will make sure to answer. Ms. Kathy.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to present tonight because we have some really exciting updates. So the first one is about Gateway. We plan the first 2 schools, both Gateway and MM. We will be, next slides. We are scheduled to open next school year. So just about 9 months away, we'll be opening these 2 brand new schools. Gateway, the last time we showed these slides, they didn't look nearly as complete. This is starting to look like a real campus. We will have an additional 2,100 student stations as our high school. We've completed phase 1, that was the design, and we are well into the construction project at this point. So we're working on our entry, we're working on our curbing. We are now actively working on our athletic facilities. We are in the campus. We are, it's really starting to look like a school with our cabinetry, our flooring, our ceiling work. And the MM project, this one also is scheduled to open this August. On the site work, I want to note that you see a lot of site work that's larger than the campus. That's because we are doing the site work for MM and J at the same time. So the new elementary site work is part of this project. Again, this project is well underway. We have the buildings ready. We are starting to work on the interior walls as the windows are being installed and the mechanical is being done. And then on our new project, KNNN, the pre-K 8 school in Estero. This is now, when we first started designing this campus, it was going to be 2 separate campuses. We found that we were able to create a lot of efficiencies by blending the 2 campuses into one single K-8. It allows us to improve the vehicular use of the site. It also allows us to only have 1 media center and reduce the administrative space that we have on this campus. So there's a lot of efficiencies we've been able to realize because we have merged this into one large pre-K 8 campus. It will open with about 1,600 student stations, but it's built long-term for 2,300 student stations. So we're doing all the core facilities and the transportation systems for that maximum build out of 2,300, even though at the moment it's only being built for 1,600. We do expect this budget to come in under budget because of the efficiencies we've been able to gain in the building and site planning. In our roofing projects, we are working on Cypress Lake High School, G. Weaver Hips Elementary, and North Fort Myers High School. And in our HVAC projects, we're working on Cape Coral High, Fort Myers High School, and Ida Baker. All of these projects are on budget and on schedule. And then some other projects that we have under the $1 million is some work we are doing at Fort Myers Technical College. We are working on, this is a 3-year project for upgrading of this campus. We are right now in the final process of hiring a construction team and a architect team, and we will start the design very shortly. We're very excited about this project. James Stevens Pre-K. We have a new pre-K center for James Stephen. We're using 2 older intermediate classrooms that were not in use. So we've gutted those 2 buildings and added a new playground and a new entranceway specifically designed for this pre-K center. And it will open after spring or after Christmas break. And then Riverdale High School, similar to Fort Myers Technical College, we are in the process of completing the contract negotiations with an architect and a CM, and we will start the design process of that. That's a longer phase project than the Fort Myers Technical. It's going to take us about 1.5 years to complete the design work because of the extensive work that we are doing on this campus. This project includes a new classroom building. It includes an upgraded gymnasium. The current gymnasium is undersized. We're also looking at the cafeteria, which is also undersized. We're going to be removing the portables on that campus and adding that capacity permanently to the campus, which is why we're upgrading the core facilities. We're going to be creating a single point of entry. We are looking at the parking lots. We're looking at some of the athletic and sport facilities. We are going to be looking at the ROTC tower and parking systems. We've bought an additional property that is to the north of the campus to provide us additional site for this project. This is a very, very tight high school site, and this additional small piece of land is going to be very useful to us as we move into this project.
And Kathy, I just want to take a minute to remind the committee that Riverdale project was the project that we had a public comment on some time ago, that the committee had voted to encourage our capital committee within the district to encourage the funding of the project. And so this is the result of that, which it is a long-term project. This would be the first phase of it, but I just wanted to remind the committee of that.
Thank you, Dr. Desmore. That is true. This project was very heavily supported by the local community, and in the design, we will be engaging the community as we move forward to make sure that their concerns and needs are met through the project. So we're very excited about this as Dr. Desmore said, as she accurately said, this is a long-term project and will be taking place over about 4-year period.
Yes, I think the dog fully supports the Riverdale project as well.
I think she does too. She's excited to go see the new campus. Thank you, everyone. Is there any other questions about any of the projects we have ongoing right now?
I have one quick question. Gwen Gittens here. You talked about that the MM and J, that's the new Lambs building and the elementary school, that site work is happening at the same time. Can you speak to that and to the inclusion of the other 10 classrooms that will be on the MM site?
So right now, as part of the construction for MM, which is the new Lambs, we are doing the site work for the new J Elementary and for an expansion building. We are also haven't started, but will be starting very soon, the selection process for the architect and the construction manager for that project. So while it won't be done right now at the same time, it will be done immediately following this project, with the completion of that campus scheduled to open in 23 for the new elementary and the expanded classroom, the new classroom wing for the new Lambs campus.
So the construction company has not been named yet, and it will be different for those two projects than it is currently for the MM?
Potentially, it could be different. It needs to go through the district's RFQ process. So we are getting ready to go through the RFQ process, and it potentially could be a different architect in CM. It could potentially be the same. We don't know what's going to be result out of the RFQ process.
Okay, and I didn't see anything on here about the renovation of the old Lambs. Is that anywhere in the near future?
Immediately after break, we will start the selection process for the construction manager and the architect for that project. So it is on the horizon very shortly.
Kathy and Amy, this is Jim Nathan. I've got a couple of observations, but I wondered if you could scroll back to the pie charts at the beginning. While you're doing that, I'll congratulate Greg Atkins on his 30th anniversary. Happy anniversary, Greg. Just some observations
Are these
here.
the ones you were wanting?
Yes. Was that the first one of the pie charts?
This is the first
Yeah,
one,
okay.
and then we got the second one.
Yeah. Go to the next one, the third one. Okay, sorry. So it must be the one before it. You show $44 million in impact fees, and I realize that's not all related to the sales tax.
Yeah,
But at some point, when you start building your story to go back to the public, being able to demonstrate that there are substantial impact fees that come back that help a heck of a lot of people. There is a message somewhere in there that the school district does participate in the impact fees. And then I was looking at the 36, the next one on the 36 million on the maintenance.
yes.
I mean, that's specific to the sales tax budget. And that's an important story because the costs associated with not doing that maintenance, which is what you were doing, that delaying the maintenance are substantial when you don't fix things and they just get worse. And then it always costs a heck of a lot more later when you've got leaky roofs and other things that get damaged because of not being able to do the maintenance. And that reminded me of those pictures that we saw at the very beginning of our little effort with this committee of looking at the areas of just the maintenance and how horrendous the things were. And I'm just sort of continuing to look at that and thinking about how you may want to be messaging the story going forward. But those pictures tell a million words versus the pictures we just saw of these gorgeous schools that are coming out of this. And the cost of not having to, the cost of being able to do the maintenance versus delaying it is substantial. And then I guess the last thing I had was that these messages, and you may already be thinking about it because the state of the schools that comes at the end of the school year comes really fast. And there's such a phenomenal story in these pictures to be able to show. And that's where it just jumped out at me about the, what this sales tax has been able to do is so substantial. And I just think it's a great story for the general public because you're going to need them in the next round. That's all.
Thank you very much for those comments. And we are well aware of our story, and the next time you see the presentation, we're gonna have a lot more before and afters for the maintenance, so you can see the dramatic work that is being done at the maintenance level, not just at the new construction level. Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
I have one more question for you. I don't know if this is Kathy or Dr. Desamore. When we had spoken, maybe it was at the last meeting, about those additional classrooms at the MM middle school that's being built now, we were initially told that those, I think it's 10 classrooms, were not done because DOE did not give us permission to build that many student stations. So when you add the elementary school and you do build those 10, is that extension then coming out of sales tax money, or have we gone back to DOE to request expansion?
No, I anticipate that that additional, and you're talking about additional classrooms at MM, correct?
Yes, those 10. Mhm.
I anticipate that they would be sales tax funded, yes. Now, of course, we, based on, because those will start, I believe it was next fiscal year, correct, Kathy? So if that project was to start next fiscal year, of course, we have to get, all our information in about all of our different funding sources and how much is where, but I anticipate that those would be funded through sales tax, yes.
As opposed to the elementary school will be through other capital funds, is that correct?
No, I believe we have that elementary school slated on
As sales tax as well?
sales tax as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, meaning that, of course, we have to take, the COPS loans out for those in the beginning, and then the debt service of which would be paid back through the sales tax funds.
Amy, I have a question. This is Steve Shemp. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Hey.
Okay, first of all, sorry, I was about 10 minutes late. I was sitting there and didn't get joined right away. Kathy, Kathy, I have a question. Your ongoing construction projects, do you have anything that's running over budget, or is everything tracking properly?
No, nothing is going over budget. And as I mentioned on our NN and K project in Estero, because of the improved site design that we're able to do by creating it as one campus rather than two campuses, we're actually going to come in significantly under budget. We have some projections of where that under budget is. I'm not ready to discuss it today because we'd like to see how the numbers actually pan out. But like I said, we don't have to have two media centers. We're able to save on the administrative offices. We're able to save on some of the transportation network and siting for the buses and the parent pickup loop. We're able to save on some of the field spaces without reducing redundancies there. The one area that we're upsizing is the gymnasium. Traditionally, an elementary school doesn't have a gymnasium. We are upsizing that site, the size of that, so that we can have full campus events for parents who have students at all grade levels. But we are going to be able to see some nice cost savings out of that project because of the way we're designing that site.
Have we postponed any of our construction improvement plan because of reduced income from sales tax due to COVID? I mean, assuming it's due to COVID, or are we still on the construction plan that we were, say, a year ago before we were faced with a reduced sales tax revenue?
We have not reduced any of our current new growth projects, and like I just mentioned, there's a couple of redevelopment project or refresh projects, the one at Riverdale, the one at FMTC, and the one that Ms. Gittens mentioned that we'll be doing at the new expanded Veterans Park K8 project, K8 campus. So not at this time.
Okay, Amy, shifting to you, I'd kind of echo what Jim's saying. I think we have a good story to tell, and we have enough years to tell it. And I would challenge staff to start to work on an end of year report as to the impact of the sales tax and what you've been able to accomplish, even in the face of some reduced revenue projections. Because it's time to start building the vote to make this thing be long-term for our district.
All right, great. We actually have a draft of an annual report to show you today. It is a draft, so
Good.
we were, going to go through some points of that with you, and then hopefully get you out to review it, give us some good feedback so we can continue to revise it and come up with a really good product to share with the public.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did just want to clarify too that yes, we did have, as as we had discussed, the had to revise our sales tax projections out over the 5 years in our 5-year plan based on all the things that were happening in the economy with COVID and all. So we did revise our 5-year projection. So therefore our 5-year plan was scaled back from the original due to those reduced projections. So
Right.
and so we did take some things out of the original 5-year plan because of that. But as we'll get to in a little bit, we're comparing now our projections to the actuals. We actually have some good news. So we will share that with you, and we can begin maybe to build a couple of things back in.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So now I think I will turn it over. We have other projects that, again, they may individually be under $1 million, but collectively they still make a lot of money within the plans. We wanted to make sure to go over those. So thank you, Ms. Ebal, for your update. And now I turn it over to Mr. Dwayne Alton so he can talk to us about some of the safety and technology projects.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay? Yep. All right. So the safety improvements, the ones that I'm speaking of course, are the safety technology improvements, which we don't get into a lot of details. I remind everybody, but we have completed in the last quarter since we met a total of 21 additional security projects out at schools. And so those 21 projects span 16 campuses. And of course, we will be finishing these projects on time this school year, or I'm sorry, this fiscal year. So we're on schedule with those projects. And the only real variation we have in some of the scheduling is sometimes at the request of the schools to move things back if they have something going on at the campus at the time we originally planned. So we also have the technology retrofits, and to remind you what the majority of that is what we call the Atlas project, and that is where we're transitioning from the old projection systems and that to the interactive panels. And so since we met last, we have brought on 6 additional campuses with that project. And those are also some of the projects where we did accommodate a couple of schools that asked to move to the summer instead of doing it now. So other schools were moved up, but the total of all those projects will still complete on time.
All right, thank you, Dwayne. And Ms. Ebal, did you want to add any additional information about these additional maintenance projects with cabinet replacements, electrical and or elevator?
No, not at this time. I just that we do have, we have many maintenance projects that we continue to work on. We have the Colonial, the elementary, so here are, thank you. I didn't realize that I want to make, okay. Go on to the next slide so we can show some befores and afters. I think this is what people really want to see. So this is the condition of Colonial Elementary's cabinetry before and after.
I just want to say, when you flip back and forth, it's like, ooh, and
Yeah. You want to be Vanna, don't you?
Right.
Yeah. So again, here's Edgewood Elementary before and after. It's just amazing the difference. And this goes to Mr. Schimpf, your comments about the great story that we have to tell. And Mr. Nathan, the story that you were speaking of. When you see these pictures, you understand what the tax dollars are being able to be used for our campuses and major improvements. This is St. Carlos.
I was sitting here thinking exactly that. You know, this is the kind of thing that, in my experience in dealing with the district for a number of years, you know, we just had to watch this stuff fall down around our ears until it would be replaced, as opposed to being proactive and getting it early on. That's really cool.
So this is San Carlos Park Elementary before. Oh, and we don't have an after one on this one yet. So the next time we meet, we'll have an after one on this one. But this is an ongoing current project and is not yet ready to be shown. But I can't wait till you can see the afters on these. But
Good. Thank you, Kathy. These are amazing pictures and some of the things that we want to make sure that we're getting on our website and we're getting out to the public to make sure that people are aware of all the great things that are happening in all of our locations.
And to that end, I just want to everyone, we were asking about signage so that we could have some signage on our campuses, and we are actively in the process of getting those signs up.
Thank you.
Can I just say too, that I think one of the, we're talking about telling the story. I think one of the most powerful pieces is going to be the before and after with portables, the amount that we have, and then the reduction of that is going to be very powerful towards that story of what the sales tax is going for.
It's certainly when we finish Riverdale and the new expanded Veterans Park, those two campuses are going to be transformed because of the portable situation.
I assume when you're redoing cabinets, you're not using particle board cores.
I don't know the answer to that question, but I certainly can get it for you, and we can get that response out.
Yeah, that's the reason a lot of them, I mean, that one picture where it's just crumbling apart, that's particle board core cabinetry, and it was a very famous way of lowering costs on construction projects 20 years ago. That's why they're falling apart today.
We can certainly get you the specifications on the construction if you'd like it.
No need to do that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. We look forward to showing you great new pictures at the March meeting.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it. And so now I will turn it over to Ms. Sarah Cox. We want to go into the revenue and financial report portion of our reporting. So, Ms. Cox.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me? Okay, great. Great. So here today, we are in year 3 of our sales tax, which just feels crazy because time is flying. And so to date, it's not presented on this slide, but to date, we have collected over $140 million in our sales tax. And you can see it broken down by fiscal year here, which is a number that corresponds to your annual financial reports. And then we have fiscal year 21 broken down by month earned, which in prior conversations we have had, that is when the taxable sale occurs. So for September, we don't actually receive that revenue until November 2020. Next slide. I always tell when we're meeting here internally, I was like, oh, I just love this graph. It tells such a story, and I can't wait till we get some more trend lines on here. But the last time we showed this graph to you guys, we only had January through June because we only had enough data for 2 fiscal years at that time. And now that we've gotten into fiscal year 21, adding that 3rd year on here, this graph is starting with the beginning of the district's fiscal year, which is in July. And so you can see that FY19 is only on the latter half of this graph because that was only a partial collection year. But you can see, you know, when we look at January for fiscal year 19 and 20, where we started out strong in COVID, we just had this huge crash, but shockingly, we have been coming in stronger for fiscal year 21 than what we were coming in at fiscal year 20. I mean, September alone, you know, over $700,000 more has just been very shocking to us, and we're so thankful for it. And I'm very anxious to see where the rest of this year is going to get us. Next slide. So here we are, just where our projections to collections have been to date. The inception to date, you know, of course, is the cumulative through fiscal year 21. Our current year to date, where we've received 30% of our total revenue for fiscal year 21. And you may think that this money would be coming in like consecutively, like we'd be getting, you know, 25% every 3 months, or, you know, 33% every 4 months. But due to just the seasonal adjustments that we have, it doesn't necessarily happen that way. And we'll kind of get into that a little more on another slide. But when we look at current year to date, so fiscal year 21, 4 months in, compared to fiscal year 24 months in, we're actually doing better. At this time in fiscal year 20, we were actually received 30% of our revenue. So we're a little above that this year. Is that a good sign? We'd like to think so, but there's still so many unknowns with the economic environment that, you know, we're not holding our breath that this may continue to happen. So then when we look at just the first quarter in July, we have actually received 12% more than what we have projected. And here is the month-to-month breakdown for you to see where our FY21 projections are, where the FY21 revenue amounts are coming in. And we threw the FY20 revenue amounts that we actually received on here, just so you can get a better picture of where these projections landed. And of course, you know, every month in 21, we just anticipated to be a little lower than what we received in 20, but we're actually exceeding that every single month. So this graph, and it does depict how the district's revenue comes in each month. So it starts with June, the taxable sales month of June, because we technically don't receive that money until August of 2020, which would be in our fiscal year 21. And then it runs through that last quarterly adjustment or quarterly discretionary that we received in August of 2021. So we're anxious as these numbers continue to fill in. We're still waiting on the Florida Economic and Demographic Research Office to release their local government financial handbook, which is their estimate of capital surtax forecast for school districts. It usually comes out in September. Last year it came out a little late. I think it was like November that it came out. And this year it's still not out. So I'm waiting on bated breath for that to come out, because we like to see how in line we are with their projections. So even though we're coming in higher than, you know, we've already revised these projections once. We came into 21 with very low projections. When we had to build the FY21 budget, there was so many unknowns. We were on, you know, a complete stay-at-home order, not knowing what anything would look like. So we revised our projections in September after the first month came in August. And so that's why you see there's no difference there. We kind of started our new estimate with how that month for August came in. And we're not planning on making any changes to these revenue estimates right now, even though we're coming in much higher, because the economic conditions are still, there's so much unknown. You know, is the federal government gonna, you know, put a bunch of more money through, you know, COVID relief dollars back into the economy? The additional funds for unemployment ends later this month. You know, so will there be additional influx of dollars to help continue keeping the economy growing at the rate that it's growing? I do think in Florida, we're very fortunate because we're not a state that has stay-at-home order again. And it seems that, you know, the tourism is really picking up as people are wanting to come here, since we're not on any type of stay-at-home order. So that was all that we had prepared regarding revenue for you. Are there any questions?
Are you ready to move into the financial reports?
Yep, if there are no questions, we sure can.
Do you want the annual or the quarterly first?
We can start with the annual.
Okay, oh, wait, hold on one second.
All right, so I won't go into a lot of detail on what's here.
Excuse me, can you hit the plus sign, make it a little bit bigger, please, on the top? Thank you.
How's that?
A bit better. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So like I said, I won't go into a lot of detail here. I just want to give you an update there. We did add some information to this report. You'll see at the very right-hand side, we added a cumulative column so we could see how much has come in for each area on an inception to date basis. And if you scroll down a little bit, Amy, under the technology section, we had listed elementary increased computer density at elementary schools. And we've since reworded that to reflect school technology because we have brought in some other refresh projects that are secondary schools in that same project. So just know that that project title has changed. And if there are no questions, we can move on to the quarterly. And so the quarterly report, we've kind of only, we were showing 2 years on here at our last meeting, FY19 and 20. And now that we're getting a little further into the sales tax, it was just becoming too much information to put on a single page. So we've condensed the quarterly report just to be reflective of the current year for you guys. And so you can see we have the budget, how much has been spent in each quarter, the remaining budget. And then for the current quarter, which is quarter 2 on this report, we have that budget adjustments column. So you can see where we're making adjustments in the budget under each project or each major area. And then on this report, we also had retitled the elementary computer density project into school technology to be reflective of the actual work there. Do you all have any questions about any of the information on these reports?
Sarah, this is basically, it's Steve Schimpf. These are basically reports of what has been expended. As your staff looks to the future, are there any areas of concern? Because I assume your staff's doing projections as where they're going to end up on a project as opposed to just keeping score on what they've spent.
Yeah, we are definitely, internally, we're definitely tracking project statuses, where we're coming in, whether they're anticipating under, over budget, and even as we look at future years, what we can fit into the budget, prioritizing the different types of projects. So yes, sir.
I used to always say there's a difference between the accountant that keeps score and the difference between the accountant that plays the game, and the person who plays the game is projecting out in front properly and trying to figure out what steerage to give. And I assume you're doing that as well as reporting these numbers that are after the fact number, basically.
Yes, you must have played that game.
Yeah. All right.
Any other questions?
Do we need a motion to approve these, Mr. Chair?
Yes, we do, but I just have one question before I'll take the motion. On those projects that come in under budget, those dollars that were budgeted for those projects across the board, do those monies automatically go back into the reserves, or do they stay within the specific section, like new capital projects, maintenance projects, technology and safety? Does the money stay within the section, or it goes into the overall reserves?
It depends. You know, we constantly have projects on deck. So, you know, as we prioritize and evaluate, sometimes that money does stay within the same area. Sometimes it goes to different areas as we bring up those projects. Sometimes it does go back to reserve. It just depends. Like you can see on this, we actually had a negative budget adjustment, which insinuates that money had gone back to the reserve. And that was just primarily from truing up some of the debt service payments in the budget to be reflective of what was actually going to occur this year.
Okay, thanks. That's what I thought that's what that meant. I just wanted to make sure. I thought that meant it was going back to reserves rather than just being redistributed within the areas. But the fact that both of those things happen, and we will be kept abreast of those happenings when you come in and do your annual, your quarterly report to us. You'll be telling us any new projects added as a result of freeing up reserves within an area.
Yes, sir. So the quarterly report, when we get to quarterly, we will present that same information that is in order to see continuously where those budget adjustments are occurring. And of course, if there's a specific questions, we'll be ready to answer why that is. I think quarter two is just a little unique because we're getting into the year and showing up our debt service payments.
So,
I don't know.
So Sarah, your sound just became distorted. So I want to click your mic back off and on, or you're welcome to come in here and join us so we can share resources. No, not better.
I think if everybody mutes until they speak, it helps.
Okay. Did you have a question, Ms. Gittens?
Yes, I do. On this report that's up on the screen right now, and it may go back to what Mr. Schimpf was saying, but this is showing basically a project, what was budgeted, where we are actually at that given time in the quarter, and how much is left. Is there any documentation that shows the same information, but with, you know, dates as far as where are we in the project? In other words, it's giving us, you know, just the 3 items, but is there something that says this is what we have left to do? This is the actual that we've spent, but, and the remaining budget, like looking at that first one, the remaining budget is 64 million, but are we close to where we should be? And I think it goes back to that. Are we, you know, ahead of budget or behind budget or what? Because that the space between the two doesn't tell us really how well we're doing. Am I making sense? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I understand. So the 2 things put together, this financial report plus the updates that we do, you know, for each of the projects, we're hoping pull those 2 pieces of information together, right? So say, for example, where you were just talking, the sales tax collection. So up at the top of this report where I'm circling here, this is all about the revenue, the money that we've collected so far. So we estimated that we would collect 76 million approximately, and we've got, after the first quarter, a remaining budget of 64.9 million. But going back to the PowerPoint, and do you see the PowerPoint on your screen now?
No, we're still in that same budget, but I mean, you can just explain, I get it. In other words, if we look at projects is what I'm talking about though. Do we show that in between pieces on projects?
Yes, and that's what we're trying to show. Of course, for the revenue collections, this is that comparison to show, you know, that space between that you were talking about. How does that really compare to what we have projected? And right now we're running ahead of the curve as far as the projections were concerned. So if we keep going on that trend, we should surpass that. The project reports, report outs is you know, what we're trying to, this is how we try to give you the information that you were asking for as far as, well, what does that mean? You've got, you know, $2 million left on, you know, to expend on the project, but where really is the project? And that's
Right.
what this information here is trying to convey, that, okay, for James Stevens, that project is nearing completion. For the Fort Myers Tech remodel, you know, that one really is just, as you can see, you know, getting started. But these project updates are meant to give that other piece of the story that you're asking for. How really is this project progressing, and where is it in terms of its stage of completion?
Right, on the one that you have up now, to me would be a good place to have that other, you know, piece. We've got the cost that we said, how much we spent, but then that extra piece. And I can talk with you offline about that. That just was a question I had.
Okay, all right, great.
Any other questions from any other committee members? If there's none, I would now accept the motion to approve the financials as presented.
Moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion to the motion? Hearing no discussion, we need to call a roll. Jeannie?
You know, I gotta switch positions for just a minute to keep from any audio issues. So 1 second.
Okay. Alyssa Brandemal? Can you hear
Yes.
me? Chris Semino?
Yes.
Dennis Perlman?
Yes.
Fred Elliott?
Yes.
Jim Dozier? Jim? James Nathan?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes,
Zerkowitz?
yes,
Joe Caddy?
Yes.
Michelle Perez?
Yes.
And Steve Shim?
Yes.
Okay.
thank you. And you,
7,
Jeannie,
8,
stay
9,
there,
yes.
because we're gonna need a second motion related to the projects update as presented.
So move this, Jim Nathan.
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second. Any discussion to the motion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Okay. Alyssa Brandemal?
Yes.
Chris Semino?
Yes.
Dennis Perlman?
Yes.
Fred Elliott?
Yes.
James Nathan?
Yes.
Joe Mazurkowitz?
Yes,
Joe Caddy?
Yes.
Michelle Perez?
Yes.
Steve Shim?
Yes.
9 yeses.
both motions carry unanimously. Thank you all very much. We move on to members' comments. Are there any members of the committee who wish to have time to make a comment at this point?
Mr. Chair, this is Chris Semino. May I make a comment?
Yes, sir, Chris, go ahead.
This is a great story, and I just want to reinforce what Mr. Nathan and Mr. Shimp said earlier. We need to tell this story. I would love to have this at my disposal to tell the story. I would do a full-fledged social media campaign around this. I would have media come out and tour the campuses. I would get this in every student's parents' inbox. I would love to have an opportunity to tell this story. I think the district has a wonderful opportunity here and needs to get ahead of that with as much of a full-fledged marketing campaign as they possibly can.
Thank you, Chris,
You know,
and I agree. Any other comments?
That begs the question, do we have the ability to use district funds to bring in a professional to kind of overview this and put together a report? Somebody from the outside.
Not that I know of, Steve, not that I know of, but let's ask staff if that's a possibility. And
I mean, I
if
think
we
that's a valid question, just from a standpoint that if you brought in somebody to tell the story and tell the story very, very professionally, and they put together a presentation, you could get a lot of mileage out of that toward the next time we have to vote on this. And I think, you know, an annual report that is really done professionally that could be circulated will not only hit the media, but also be circulated by individuals to people they know. And, you know, you could get some really good mileage out of this. And I think it's timely. We've had enough time now that it's time to start to tell the story. And I would encourage you to not do it through a website that's created by the district internally, but take a look about bringing a pro in and putting the pro to work and saying, tell our story as best we can.
So this
So
is
we
true,
can-
Patty. I agree with what you said, but I also think that you know, the recommendation should be made to, you know, Dr. Adkins, and then he should decide what he wants to do with it and how he would like to do it.
Yeah, I think that's the way to approach it is, but we ought to task administration with, you know, pondering that and figuring out how we could do it best. Because I'll tell you what, as a private enterprise guy, I'm sitting here saying, you know, you could get some mileage out of this, and it's time to seize the opportunity. And that costs a little money to do it.
I would completely agree, and I think we've made our interest in a story very clear to staff, that they share that with the superintendent and come back to us with their response to that, it is a very good story to tell. I have one thing I need to address tonight for the committee. Meeting dates for the rest of this year, excuse me, for 2021. I don't want 2020 to go on any longer than it needs to. The rest of 2021, the meeting dates that we're proposing are March 25th, June 24th, September 23rd, and December 2nd. Anyone have any big issues with those? If not, I would take a motion to approve those as our meeting dates for 2021.
I'll move it.
Second, Sibino.
We have a motion second. Since it's administrative nature, we'll do a voice call vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Any other member comments? Staff comments?
I've got a question. I think I might be coming up for renewal or renomination or something like that. Where is that process and how do we do it if we're interested in continuing to serve or not?
That process will be taken up at our March meeting. I just got a communication from staff earlier this week. We thought we were going to take it up at this meeting, but that will be addressed at our March meeting. I would suggest that staff works with their legal group and send out to all those members who are coming up for renewal the opportunity to, if they wish to continue to serve, to let somebody know the proper format in which to do so. And if there are openings, get the board to make sure they appoint and fill those openings prior to our March meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Mazurkowitz, if I could share some information about that. Yes, we do have several members whose terms were 2-year, and so would be up as of the end of this month. That would be Mr. Nathan, Mr. Kreis, Mr. Semino, Ms. Brandemall, Mr. Lopez, Ms. Campbell, and Mr. Schimpf. And so those are the 7 members that have the 2-year terms. We will be putting out the application on the website. So if you are interested in continuing your term, if you would complete that application again, like you did the first time, and then board members will, the appropriate board member, because each of you were appointed by a different one, will make their selection for the committee. And then the next term, the term you would then be appointed for would be 4 years.
Amy, could you send each of those people a copy of their prior application?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, if you'd do that, it'd be helpful to all of us. So we tell our story straight the second time.
Okay, okay, will do.
No, I'd like to see what I gave you the first time around, and it'd make it easier to do the second application.
Absolutely.
If you don't want me again, you just don't send it. That'll take care of the problem.
No,
But the thing is, I'm sure you've grown by leaps and bounds since initially.
Nope, you can expect to receive that email. That is no problem.
Thank you.
And then as Mr. Mazurkiewicz said, in March, that is when we would receive all of our new members and then do elections on the chair and vice chair at that time.
Yes, and make sure that all 7 get that email, Amy.
We'll do.
All right, very good. Any other comments by any members of the board or board liaison?
I did have just one other follow-up to the question that was asked before about using a marketing professional. We can do that. We can expend our funds in order to educate the public. We wouldn't be pressing one stance or another, but certainly we would be educating the public, the community, our parents about everything that has happened with those sales tax funds. We actually do have a draft of that annual report that I had just gotten up on my screen and got ready to show you before my computer rebooted. So grab Jeannie's computer, but what we will do is send by email that draft of the annual report. And we would love for you all to review it. And we would love for feedback from you. And you can just send it by email to me and or Jeannie. We love your feedback on it so that we can continue to revise it and hopefully come up with a nice final product to share with the public. And we are working with a marketing firm on that annual report.
And I would just like to say, and maybe Dr. Desamore, maybe you can address this. A lot of people, of course, are concerned with COVID and all the things that are going on and the kind of up and down financial situation as to how we as a district may be impacted. And we recently did get word about how much, with the budget. Remember with the 17 million, I think it was, and there was something about that it was across the board for all the districts. Dr. Atkins, you're on, so are you familiar with what I was saying? So perhaps mentioning that to the group that we may not be as far behind as it may look with COVID as far as our funding from DOE. So would you like to mention that to them?
Yeah, so I in terms of overall funding, the DOE at this point and the state is saying that they are holding firm on the funding that we will receive. I think really where the rubber is going to meet the road is if that is the case, if that does happen to be the case and they hold firm through the rest of this year, what is next year's allocation going to look like? Because at some point, the rubber has to, the two ends have to meet. So I think that at this point, yes, they have held us steady in terms of our original projection to the state and the funds that we receive. We really do believe, though, that proof is going to be in the fiscal year 2022 pudding when we get the budget for next year as to how good or bad that looks.
And just to elaborate a little bit on that, specifically what we received from the Department of Education in our briefing to superintendents, we do have 24 school districts across the state of Florida that have actually grown The rest of the school districts have actually lost students. We are one of the ones that have lost students at this point. It looks like we are certainly down about, I think, 2,900 students. Amy can correct me if I'm wrong. So, you know, under normal circumstances, that would be quite an impact to our school district to withhold that type level of funding. If you're talking about 2,900 kids, that's pretty substantial at something like 7,200 student, $7,200 per kid. But what the governor, what the commissioner are committed to for this year is to take that loss of those districts and really spread that across all of them, give a little bit of money for the growth in those 24 growth districts. But the reduction that would come to those other districts across the board would only be $17 million for all the districts that are losing students. That is a substantial hold harmless for those districts, and we are of course one of them. And then to Dr. Dessamore's point, remember that commitment is through this fiscal year. I do anticipate, I think we all anticipate that we are going to see some type of reduction that will be fairly substantial going into next school year, but we are in the midst of preparing for that right now.
Greg, I have a question. Why do you lose those 2,900 students or 2,400 students? Do you know where they went?
Yeah, that's a good question that we are really trying to determine. We believe that many of those students did not, and there's a number of places that can happen. One is that projections that for kindergarten, for example, there are parents that did not, that chose not to send their child to kindergarten this particular year because of concerns over COVID. That's one spot. We believe another one is that we see that some of these urban districts, they're moving to maybe more rural areas. So they're just moving. And so they didn't show back up after the closure at the pandemic and after the summer break. So they did,
Gotcha.
just didn't return. So we just believe we had some that substantial portion of them that just moved from in the area. So those are probably where we feel the most of them are. I know our schools have been, I've encouraged them. Our schools have been extremely active at any of these do not shows to actually contact them, any known number. So school staff have been very, very aggressive to get as many back as we can. But that's where we stand at this point, and that's what we believe. Many of the reasons are attributed just moving out of the area or not starting school in kindergarten.
And
Thank you.
And I think from some parents that I've heard too, at first, a lot of people just thought, okay, it's going to go away and then I'll send my child to school, and it just has not. It's, continuing on. And several people have gone to where they can find jobs, or if their job closed down, they have moved. A lot of people are moving in with relatives. So they are, moving and going different places like that. So I do want to mention too that when we start back after the holiday, school starts, I believe, on the 5th, but on the 11th, we will probably have a large influx of students from that. The administration and all are calling now and asking and talking with parents about sending their kids back face to face. So there is I believe, a projected influx that will happen, and they are set to return on the 11th of January. So if you see things kind of, larger numbers and all that, just know that a lot of the kids that are doing Home Connect and Leave Virtual and all will be coming back on the 11th of January.
Thank you, board member. Any other comments? Member comments?
Joe, this is Chris. Is there any reason to to make a motion to approve some dollars from the sales tax to be used for the education of the public? Could we create a line item of education to retain a firm, not to do an annual report? The annual report is the simplest, most basic marketing part, but video tours, interviews, social media campaigns, outreach, etc. Do we need to create a line item to do that education of this?
I think it would be appropriate to establish a line item to, at this meeting, and to have staff come back with a budget projection as to how much they would like to put into that line item. It's probably premature to establish a budget amount tonight, but establishing a line item, I think, is appropriate.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. You know, I think it's our task, and he's probably heard the message relatively clear. It's our task to tell Dr. Atkins, come back to it. We're interested in seeing a more professional marketing in addition to the annual report. You come back to us next meeting, tell us how we ought to be doing that, and let us ponder that or give you suggestions for improvement or pulling it back. But I think that's an administrative, bring us what you recommend challenge. Not that he's got enough to do anyway, but you know, that'd be right down his alley.
Chris, you want to go ahead and make a motion to establish a line item for marketing? Actually, it's going to be public education, not marketing.
I don't feel comfortable making a motion for a line item that doesn't have a dollar amount to it. I don't know what that motion would achieve.
Well, it would, the motion would give clear direction from a majority vote of the commission to the staff that we want that to happen. It doesn't have to happen. We can wait till after the administration comes back to us and then adopt the line item with it. But it's a placeholder, if nothing else. It's up to you. Either way works for me.
I would bet you that Dr. Atkins heard this discussion and will come back to you next time with a recommendation.
I'm pretty
And you
sure
don't
he
need
will
a
too.
motion.
All right, any other business to come before the committee?
Well, and just that I would definitely agree with that comment. We've certainly heard the discussion and we would be happy to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins.
And
Any
my
other-
final question is there anything specifically that you would want me to take back to the board from this group besides, you know, the things that have been covered?
Board member, I think it's very clear that this board has been extremely pleased with the information shared with us since the inception of this committee. We have been pleased with the flexibility of staff to format the information in a way that's easy to understand. And we've also been pleased with the performance of staff in rolling out the projects and also the reporting of how they roll out the projects and ongoing reporting, both financially and project updates.
Okay, I shall do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, board
Mr.
member.
Chairman, will you entertain a motion to adjourn?
I certainly will, Mr. Ship.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes, you do.
Motion second. Discussion.
No discussion on the motion, just one more point, Mr. Mazurkowitz, just clarifying that as far as the marketing campaign is concerned, we can't use the sales tax funding for that, but we certainly can use other funding sources within the district for that. So we'll be bringing back the estimate for that, but I just wanted to clarify that so you wouldn't be expecting to see it on the reports.
No, I wanted you, that's why I made it very clear that we would be talking about a public education campaign, not a marketing campaign.
Right, exactly. Okay, thank you.
All right. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion to adjourn signify by saying aye.
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 Any objections? Motion carries. Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you so much for participating in our meeting. Hopefully next time we'll be able to get face to face.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, everyone. See you after the
Happy-
new year.
Thank you all.
Happy holidays,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Yeah.
Do you know who seconded? Steve Schimpf was first. I don't know who